everybody. Welcome back to the Empire State Conservatives podcast, episode 141. It is me, your host, Evan, here with the now infamous Gabe Montalvo, host of Talking GOP and Empire State Conservative Network contributing writer. And today we have a very special guest, Dave Franklin, who is running for the New York State Senate out of District 7, my old hometown in Port Washington, whose seat is now occupied by the useless Anna Kaplan. Dave, thank you so much for coming on the show.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me, guys.
Guys, just a reminder to check out our brand new patriotically thick shirt. It is now in the store. Make sure you check that out. It is dropping. People are already ordering, so make sure you get yours. Our store is at EmpireStateConservativeNetwork.com/store, and every cent goes back into spreading conservative values in New York and helping fix this state, which we desperately, desperately need. And we are hoping, Dave, that you will be a part of that. If you could just give the folks at home a little bit of your background and why you are running against that useless woman, Anna Kaplan.
How do you really feel about her? Just don't hold back. Again, thanks for having me. I grew up in Jersey. I've been in Port Washington for about 33 years. Worked in television for 38 years, and I was always involved in the community. This was a great town to live in. People were great, and life was good. So you give back. So I did a lot of charity events, a lot of community events. I played Santa Claus in 5 different places in town. Just things like that. And as a result of my involvement in the community, 9 years ago, I was asked to run for police commissioner in Port Washington. It's an elected position, and I won, and then ran 2 other terms. I won unopposed, which I say is always the mark of a good champion, when you can run unopposed and still win. And the last time I lost to a friend, just in December, I lost the election to a friend. My job in television uprooted and moved to Atlanta, so I don't speak the language. I stayed up in New York, and I always felt that, when one door closes, another one opens, and everything happens for a reason. 3 months ago, I was asked if I would run for state senate against Anna Kaplan, and said yes. It's a chance to give back. So, it's my slogan is people, not politics, because it's got to be about the people. And I think a lot of politicians have forgotten the fact that we should be representing them, not, we're here for them, not the other way around.
I mean, that is huge. A lot of the people who we've talked to who are like outsiders coming in, like yourself, like Liz Joy, like Beth Parlato, have said the same thing. And I think that's the biggest message that the politicians have forgotten, that they work for us, that they are there to fix things for us. They are not there to make things better for the government. And that is really something that has been lost in politics right now.
I agree. And it's listening to people. People have something to say. If there's a problem, if you don't listen to them, you don't know what it is, you don't know how to fix it. So you have to just go into the towns and listen.
Yeah.
And that's what I plan on doing. I'm going to do a lot more town halls. I'm not going to go in and give the same speech to every town, thank you, goodbye, and wave and run to the next town. I have my Dave Franklin, here's what I believe in, and then sit down and listen the rest of the way. What do you think? What are you looking for?
Gabe?
That's great. Yeah, no, I was just going to say that it's amazing how we're seeing an increase of political outsiders really coming into the political arena, and all of their intentions, from especially the ones that we've had on the show, have always seemed to just give back, and that they're tired of how their state, their community, the direction, they're tired of the downward slope that it's headed in. And I say, personally, for me, it's a breath of fresh air, and it should be for many people who are tired of the same old career politician, handshaking, baby kissing type of, clean cut people, as they'd say. I mean, Dave, you even said that you were recommended to run for police commissioner. So that means that people trust you with their lives, and that you can ensure that, their safety. So, I think that your history speaks for itself.
Thank you. As I said, it's public service, plain and simple. I hate politics. It's public service. It doesn't get any simpler than that.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is that people have been sick of politicians for years, and then not tug on Trump's drum too much, but Donald Trump came in out of nowhere as an outsider and said, "Hey, politicians are supposed to be working for the people. I'm going to work for the people." And I think that really did inspire a lot of people to be like, "Hey, instead of just complaining about politicians, let me run for office and try to get in there and do some good." And I think that's a big part of the Trump effect.
No, I agree. His win was definitely a wake-up call. And the other nice thing is he's done everything he said he was going to do.
It's true.
And that's also rare. How many politicians make promises and then they get into office? They'll tell you anything you want to hear to get your vote, and then they get into office and you never hear from them again until 2 or 4 years later when they're running.
Yeah, unless Joe Biden promised to sniff, people's hair, and then he doesn't. But other than that, let's get into your platform, Dave. We had you on for a very specific reason. I am in full support of you, but I want to get your message out to the people. So as the former police commissioner, a big issue for you is definitely that horrible, horrible bail reform that literally everybody hates. It is possibly one of the worst things ever put into place in New York. It's really bad. But so besides the fact that you're letting people just out of prison, the whole discovery issue with allowing people back to the scene of the crime, access to witness names and addresses and phone numbers, the whole thing is a complete disaster. Even Democrats have been talking about amending it. I am just saying they need to throw it out, Dave. What is your position on bail reform?
Well, obviously, it's an obscene law. I don't know what they were thinking. I mean, the powers that be, the Democrats tend to have an all or nothing attitude. There was room in the middle. I mean, if you had a problem with bail, the judges need to have that flexibility to mandate a bail, or the fact that if it's a repeat offender and poses a threat to himself or to the public, should stay in jail and not get, don't just do an all or nothing. And just some of the crimes are just obscene, like using a child for a drug deal in school. You don't need bail for that anymore. Using child for pornography. Yeah, you're having a bad day. We'll let you walk. Come back in 4 days or whatever. Possession of weapons used. First, second, and third degree arson. I have a list. I got about 4 pages here. It just goes on and on.
I mean, in New York City, they're allowing people out for assault. We had a woman assault 3 people in 3 days and kept getting out of jail. The whole thing's ridiculous.
Yeah, and that's it. If you have nothing to lose, I don't know if you remember a couple of months ago, the guy that was arrested for the 137th time, as he was walking out of the precinct, thanked the Democrats. Hey,
bail reform is lit, people.
Yeah, and but again, city's another story, and I don't want to get started on that because you've got criminals walking around. You let the criminals out. If a mask is good enough for us, why can't you give the criminals a mask and keep them in jail? You have to let these guys out. And
they don't want them to get sick. This way they can get out and rape and murder and stab people. I mean, this is what's going on. We see stories every single day of a person released from prison, stabbed grandmother, stabbed child. Like, this is ridiculous. Why are you caring so much about the criminal, but not about the people in your community? That's the problem. These people live in the communities that are high crime areas. So what you're saying is you're so worried about looking like you're all for the people, right? The Democrats, you're all for the minorities, but you're putting dangerous criminals back on their streets. They don't think anything through.
No, not at all. I agree with that. And now that everybody's locked up and staying in their homes, there's been an increase in car theft. I have one of the home alarm systems, and every day I get 5 or 6 messages. Oh, my car was stolen. My car was stolen. Duh. It's just, as I said, it was all or nothing. They tried to do a little bit of reform. They added a few more crimes or took a few more crimes away. I think they went from 20 to 30 days for the discovery, but they're rearranging the deck chairs on a Titanic. That's all it amounts to.
Well, they claim that bail didn't work, but when you have a 4%, people not showing up for court, that means 96% of people who are out on bail are showing up for court. I'm sorry. That's pretty damn good. If I have a 96% in any class, so I have a kid scored 96% on a test, I'm saying he did a good job. Bail was working. Now, excessive bail for people who have parking tickets and stuff like that, that's stuff, there are abuses in every system. But you don't just do a complete overhaul of the system. Give them a little bit of leeway. Take some, misdemeanor offenses, and you can eliminate for that. But these are literally people being booked for assault, being let out of jail.
Yeah, as I said, Jersey did it right. They left it up to the discretion of the judge. Who should be the one to decide, not just some blanket policy. The judge can look at a record and make a deal with the prosecutor. This guy is going away. This guy, all right, may have had some problems. We can give him a reduced bail. Because initially, one of the problems they thought was that it was prejudicial to minorities because they didn't have the same money to pay the bail. We did a sliding scale, pay what you can. keep them in jail if necessary. Or if you're going to put a young kid in there that's going to end up in Rikers and they're going to turn him into a career criminal, it's, again, the whole penal system has to be looked at as well.
Agreed. Gabe, anything?
I mean, the excuse that we're doing this for minorities doesn't hold up, because now you're just saying that we're not able to hold our own, or you're expecting us to just go to jail or to commit a crime.
No, they're saying, you're saying that, but they're saying minorities are just criminals. That's what they're saying, Gabe. You're 100% right.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's what, I was also taught in school that voter ID laws shouldn't be a thing, or you shouldn't have voter IDs, because apparently Black Americans or Hispanic Americans that live in urban ghetto or public housing areas don't know how to get to their nearest DMV to get ID or to register to vote, or they don't understand that process. So again, you want to play this, and not you, but Democrats want to play this whole white man's burden, we must teach the savages how to behave type of mentality, and they're always fixated on race. And they don't understand that you're making excuses for bad behavior, and you're rewarding it, and then you're surprised when it happens.
It's the racism of low expectations, Gabe.
Oh, well, exactly. And I forget. It was the J31 event, big whole protest about.
Oh
yeah, over the over policing of the MTA police in the subways, and I said, why are we allowing for this to happen? And then shortly afterwards, a city councilman down in Brooklyn said, hey, you know what? I have a great idea. Why don't we just make the subways free? But you want to know why? Because we're finding that on average, disproportionately, 90% of the people that are caught by the MTA police are fare evaders. Over half of them happen to be Black American. So that we don't get Black Americans in trouble and have them get a record, we're going to make it free. So again, you're rewarding bad behavior.
The subway's not that expensive. I don't get it. It's like what, $2.75? Like the subway's not that expensive.
Well, for the idea of the subway, it's not that expensive. But at the same time, when you're living in such a high cost area, such as the city, expenses add up, and sometimes people don't have money for it, and there can be a whole different conversation about that. But if you want people to pay, don't tax them to death. Don't make everything so expensive. Don't have the $15 minimum wage as an excuse to raise everything else, because guess what? That $2.75 was about to become $3.
Yep. And, we talked about taxing, and that's another one of your platforms, Dave. But fixing the economy and reducing taxes in Emperor Cuomo's tax hell of New York is going to be, of no small task. We have been $6 billion in debt before the coronavirus,
yep.
And now we're being held hostage for a federal bailout, but the Fed is bleeding money. So there really isn't money for bailouts. They can only print so much money. Do you have a plan to go in there and be like, hey, we need to fix this state. We need to raise funds to get out of debt so we can fund things like schools and police and fire, things that people need, but also not tax citizens to death, because New York State is bleeding people. Well,
indeed. The problem is, as you said, taxing. Nobody seems to be talking about cutting spending anymore. Everything is, I got a great idea, on this program. Well, how do we get the money? Oh, raise taxes. It's just, it's reflex. We got to create more jobs. I have a couple ideas. I know that Trump has spoken about how bad the supply chain has been with the PPE and with the pharmaceuticals and whatnot. Let's build some factories in New York, especially you look at the fact that we needed the supplies more than anyone. Let's make our own. Let's guarantee that we have what we need. Let's make ibuprofen that nobody makes anymore. Let's make the pharmaceuticals here. Let's make the equipment that we're going to need should this happen again. And if you think if it happened now, in all likelihood, it'll happen again. The other thing I'd like to do, sports gambling. We have the lotto. We have faux casinos here. It's just all machines. But Pennsylvania last year raised $1.42 billion from sports gambling. New Jersey grossed $400 million, and I think it was $40 million in taxes alone. We have the infrastructure in place. We have the OTB here. It's just a question of adding a couple more tellers and a couple more booths. You know, if you license out to some of the sports bars, you know, you can make yourself a nice sports book that's got a restaurant, that's got a bar. All the leagues are behind this, all right? You've got the fantasy leagues that do this as well. I think it's a cash cow with a minimal expense.
I definitely like that idea. I also like the idea of opening up manufacturing in New York State. I mean, you have these towns upstate that you know, some of them are being revitalized, but a lot of these dead towns could use an influx of jobs and stuff like that to bring money back into the town. You could revitalize all these places in the Catskills that are dying by putting in, you know, a manufacturing plant. Put an ibuprofen plant up where, you know, the Rolly used to be, if the building's still even there. You know, you put something in there, you build some housing up there, and you make a small town, and you bring jobs into the area, you bring jobs into the state. I love that idea. And sports gambling, it's like a voluntary tax.
Yeah, and that's it. You know, you not only you're generating revenue from the sale, but you're generating tax income, and you're employing people. You're cutting down on your unemployment rate. It's win-win.
Gabe?
No, I would just also have a question just to see what your stance on this would be. Currently, State Senator Jessica Ramos is advocating for the legalization of prostitution in New York State. Now, if we look at Nevada, they do get a significant amount of income. The state gets income for the taxes because of it's just a very successful industry for them. Now, with that being said, being that, you know, we're talking about job creation, would you also be in favor of that?
Oh, I'd have to give that some thought. I think there'd be a lot of health concerns that I would have. You'd have to go through a litmus test of having the men and women checked, you know, regularly for disease. I don't know what the cost of that would be. Yeah, it would be something to look at. I don't know, from a morality standpoint, I don't know if I would be in favor of it, but I would look at it. It's like marijuana. I don't think marijuana should be legalized recreationally right now. There's not enough study done on it. There was a 5-year study I saw from Colorado. You know, it's the money's up. Obviously, it's a cash cow, but especially in New York, depending on how they would tax it, if you tax it too much, you're going to take the black market is still going to be involved. You're not going to get rid of the black market. Same thing with prostitution. If you're taxing it and you tax it too much, you're still going to have men and women on the street that are performing these acts that haven't been tested.
Right.
You just shut down Gabe's new career path.
I'm not, you know.
You're funny. No,
I mean, Gabe, you know, what you do on the side is up to you. But, you know.
Thank you. No, but what I was getting at was my biggest counter to the state senator's idea was the fact that what we're finding is that New York State is one of the top states in the country that deals with human trafficking and forced sex work. So whenever I hear that the my body, my choice, it's just let women do what they want to do, which is her position. It's not an economic position that she's taking. It's always been, she said to the New York Times, it's been the oldest profession. We can't stop it. We should just make it legalized because it's affecting minority women. So, and the Asian community. And I said, well, how about you clean up your district, your area, because it's running rampant down there in Jackson Heights or in Corona. So, well, Central Queens. So why don't you say that you're for women and actually help them that are being forced and are being raped every day? That's what a testimonial said, that she was being raped every single day for the amount of time that she was trapped within this syndicate.
But we've seen this with the Democrats all the time. Instead of fixing a problem, so in my area, drug dealing is a problem. Instead of let's fix the community, let's make drugs, let's make drugs legal. Now it's not a crime anymore. Guess what? We just eliminated 50% of our crime, but you still have the behavior going on. So if you're having the human trafficking for prostitution and you legalize it, you're not solving the problem of human trafficking. You're just making the end game legal. It doesn't solve the problem.
Making it hard to convict when it's illegal.
Right. This is the problem with the Democrat Party. They are not actually there to, well, the problem with government in general, but they are not there to solve any problems. They are there to make it look like they have done something for the community instead of actually getting in there and doing something. You have Nancy Pelosi in Congress for 40 years now? And her district is one of the worst districts in the country. People are crapping in the streets over there. These politicians have forgotten what their duty is, and that is the biggest problem that we have right now. We need people who are going to go in and help communities as opposed to looking at making it seem like they've done something so they can get reelected.
And again, that goes back to what I was saying earlier about being detached from your community. Okay, Nancy Pelosi wants everybody inclusion, everybody in, but she's in a gated community behind a wall. And as you said, San Francisco is now one of the worst. It's sad. Which once was a great city is now tent city. It looks like the courtyard in Duke before a basketball game with all the tents set up.
There's a page you can follow on Instagram to see what's happening in Pelosi's district in San Francisco, and I saw this. I guess you can call him an independent journalist or whatever. He goes and he takes a picture / video of a man smoking crack out of another man's anus. And they're mentally unstable, but you got to give them more needles. You got to keep just helping the problem. And now with, what is it? What's that title or chapter 13, title 13, something like that, where if you rob an establishment with the value being less than $950, it's just a misdemeanor.
Right.
But yeah, people are just running in and filling up garbage bags with merchandise. I mean, they're looking to decriminalize. That doesn't change the behavior. It encourages the behavior. If stealing a car is no longer a crime, if it's a violation and I get a ticket, and I could possibly steal someone's Mercedes and resell it, if I'm desperate, I might take that risk because I'm not going to go to prison. I might go to jail for a little while, but the risk versus reward now becomes the reward is much higher than the risk. The whole point of having laws on the books, it's to deter crime. It's to punish people when they commit crimes, but deter the person who's on the fence, which is why we have these gun laws and people are like, oh, we need stricter gun laws. No, people who are following the gun laws are not committing crimes with guns. It's the people who are already criminals. The gun laws are already the gun laws that are on the books are already working. We use them to punish criminals. But you can't stop criminals. You can deter people who are on the fence, but you are never going to stop that criminal element. So this whole issue with, decriminalizing doesn't work. And they still haven't seen it because it's all about PR. It's all about how everything looks so they can get it's the same thing over and over again. I feel like I say it every episode. They are masters in PR. They are masters at looking like they care in order to keep their paycheck.
Right. It's about the spin. And then they do their best Pontius Pilate, wash their hands of the situation. And if you decriminalize it, you don't have to deal with it anymore.
It's really bad.
It's sad. It's sad.
All right, but the big thing in the news now is this coronavirus lockdown. While some states are reopening, parts of New York are reopening. Long Island we had this story of Nassau beaches opening and restricting it to Nassau County residents after Bill de Blasio said New York City beaches would be closed. I read somewhere today that he was planning on opening New York City beaches. I don't know if that's true. I just saw it in passing. But, the whole reopening of New York, if you are elected this year, it's going to be a long process. How are we getting people back on their feet for the small business owner that has basically lost almost everything during the shutdown?
Well, fortunately, in a lot of places, especially here in Port Washington, at least some of the restaurants, people have looked out for their own community. They're going to some of the restaurants that are now takeout only. So they're surviving. Sadly, the waiters and bartenders aren't really making the money they did because if they're rotating, the waiters are now delivering your food to your car. But most people are being very generous in tipping them, and they're being very generous as far as frequenting these restaurants. So that being said, it's time to open. You look at the revolts, all the protests around the country. People are normally social. All right, you can't keep people locked up this long. And people have to work. I mean, there's so much more than just the virus. There's the psychological factor of people being cooped up so long. There's the social factor, the financial factor. There's just, now Cuomo said this afternoon or this morning, he's not going to open up the summer camps, and there's not going to be any summer school. You got to get these kids out and playing with other kids. There's going to be, especially the young kids that are in what I call the wonder years, the formative years of their personality. this is going to be far more detrimental than the virus would be.
Yeah. I used to work at a summer camp for the YMCA and an after-school program headed by them. So we would take, their kids parents' kids for the summer for, I think it was a total of an 8-week program. And you were able to send your kid for these 2-week sessions or however long or short you wanted them to be there. And we gave them the opportunity to learn how to swim, to actually, if they were in my group, we went for runs on the track, or we played games in the park. We gave them actual exercise. We did STEM classes. I personally taught civics and U.S. history in with my group, because I said, it's important for you guys to know your rights and separate fact from myth. And that connection that I had, because I was working with 12 to 14-year-olds, was great, because you would help them navigate and guide them through their adolescence when their parents were busy working at that time. And you're giving them an out to release that energy, to unleash their creativity, with our art programs. And now that that's not happening, parents are complaining now that their kids are too much for them to handle. Now imagine in the summertime when they literally have nothing else to do, and you're expected to keep New York State in this state of emergency, or however way you want to label this lockdown, for another 2 years. It's insane. How are we supposed to do anything? And now, Evan, to what you said, Führer Wilhelm de Blasio is saying that he wants to slap you on the hand if you're going to go to the beach, and if you don't be good, we're going to close it, we're going to gate it off, and you're going to have to dot your I's and just smile and say, please open it up again. It's horrible.
No, it's really ridiculous. And this whole the argument they use is that, if you care about doctors and nurses, then you'll stay home. But what about the small business owner? What about people who have clinical depression, who are now stuck in their homes and losing their jobs and are committing suicide? What about women who are stuck at home with abusive spouses and are being beaten? We've seen all these things rise. Domestic abuse is going up. Substance abuse is going up. By the governor's own admission, these things are going up. But if it saves one life, it's worth it. The same thing with banning guns, right? If it saves one life, it's worth it. But what about if it costs one life? If one person killed themselves because they lost everything in this quarantine, is that worth it now? They always want to play this game if it saves one life. That argument doesn't hold up. This is the problem with their whole mentality, their whole plan. It doesn't hold water. It's paper tigers. That's all it is.
This is proven to cost more than one life.
Yeah, I don't know if they're considering acceptable losses, as if we were triaging in the field in the middle of a war. I don't know. I had an argument with someone about the vaccines and whatnot, and they would say, well, science has a certain number, and we're expected to do, save X amount of people, and some people are not going to be saved, and that's just the logic. It's just, it's acceptable losses. It's collateral damage because it's whatever for the greater good.
Yeah, but what are they going to do? Mandatory vaccines? I always told people, if you don't get sick, don't get vaccines. Yeah. I had a teacher in my school. It's a horrible story. This guy was a professional bodybuilder. He was a New York City auxiliary police officer. He worked out with Arnold Schwarzenegger. Like, this guy was built. This guy was like yoked. Like, that term yoked. This guy was yoked. And he was like 60. And this guy was still just like a beast. He got married to the science teacher, had never gotten the flu shot before. He decided, hey, I'm going to get the flu shot because now I have 2 young girls in my house. I want to make sure that I'm protecting them. Gets the flu shot, is sick for the next 8 months, and dies.
Yeah.
Because people die from the flu shot. If you don't get the flu, I never get the flu. The 1 year I got the flu shot, I got ridiculously sick. I don't get the flu shot. You're going to tell me I'm going to need a vaccine for a disease that has the same death rate as the flu? It's not happening, because I know that if I don't get the vaccine, my body is strong enough to fight it off. If you give me the vaccine, I might get ridiculously sick. I know people in medicine. My buddy who works in the ER literally told me every single vented patient that they had died. That was it. It was the wrong treatment. They shouldn't have done it, and it cost them so many lives because it was the wrong treatment. So now you're going to tell me to put my life in the hands of people making a vaccine for a disease that they still don't have a real treatment for, or an approved treatment for, or a publicly approved treatment for, even though we all know what's going on behind the scenes. It's ridiculous. And all these people are like, well, if it saves one life, don't you respect doctors and nurses? I do. You know what? Who else I respect? Police officers. You know what? You shouldn't be committing crimes. Don't go speeding. Do you respect other drivers on the road? Don't go through a red light. Don't roll through a stop sign. Do you respect kids? You might run over a kid if you roll through a stop sign. The argument doesn't work. It's this all or nothing garbage. And I can't stand it. It's very frustrating.
Agreed. As I said, all or nothing. You know, there's an in between. There's a middle ground that can satisfy it, but it's nobody ever looks for it.
Yeah, I mean, you can stand in line at Walmart, but you can't stand in line to go vote in November, or you can't stand in line at your local business. It's ridiculous. I understand bars and restaurants and stuff where people are super close proximity. That's a completely different story. But you're telling me I can't go to a mom and pop shop to go pick out like clothes or furniture or something like that? They can't be open? It's ridiculous. If corporations can be open like Target and Walmart, why can't my local gun store be open? If they're just as safe, they can be even cleaner than Walmart because they'll have someone dedicated to cleaning, and it's a smaller shop with less people going in. The whole thing, it's all nonsense.
Well, it's funny you talk about, going into stores and restaurants and whatnot. If you look at the bars, I think in Wisconsin and places where they've relaxed the rules, it's like the end of prohibition. And that's what it's going to be like here. People can't wait. And not even for the fact of drinking, whatever. It's the socializing that they've been lacking.
We're social animals. We need to be around other people.
Exactly.
But then the media spins it. So they took Wisconsin, right? And 2 days after the bars open, they go, well, coronavirus spiked. Hey, geniuses, it takes 2 weeks to incubate. So that means that those people who got sick were sick 2 weeks before the bars opened. It wasn't because the bars were opening, but every single person who is on the left will go, look, they opened bars and more people got sick. It's all garbage.
Well, look what happened in Florida. The Governor DeSantis comes out and says, you've been giving us the death sentence for 8 weeks, and everybody's fine. There was no spike. Everybody's back to normal in Florida now. And that should be a good cause to open up faster.
100%. Gabe?
This virus that's right here in my house. You can see it's right there. Sorry for those who only listen on the audio. We're okay in this household. It's just you'd get it. Watch our videos. But this virus has actually, I feel that this virus has actually caused us more damage than good to our psyche. It has put people to succumb to despair. I recently walked outside without a mask. If you'd like, you can call the NYPD and, they'll straighten me out, I guess. Open invitation. But I walked outside without a mask, and I did what I did. The first time that I saw the fear in people's eyes, I actually smiled at people. I smiled at them, and I said, just like, how are you? Like that look of assertion, like it's going to be okay. And from their mask, you can see like wow, like I haven't had that sort of contact. Like just that small thing brought them back. Like, yeah, people exist, and it's not that bad. And for something that we have over 99% chance of actually surviving, to have just thrown everything away, where we have now had people arrested for practicing their First Amendment rights, is insane. And you're going to tell me that the piece of cloth that I'm putting around my face, or that you're putting around your face, that isn't a gas mask or an N95 mask, that's really going to be effective? But then again, if I'm inside and I haven't been going out, which I really haven't been, as much as I would like to, you're going to tell me that if I'm not sick, I still need to wear it because the other person who's wearing a mask is going to infect me, even though they're not sick either. And I know you can't tell who's really sick and who's not, but I doubt that anybody who has symptoms of this is really going out there in the first place. But what we're doing by keeping ourselves inside is weakening our immune systems when we could be building herd immunity, when we could be naturally fighting this off, just like Sweden's doing, and the rest of Europe is following suit. Oh, well, people are getting better. Why? Because they are developing the antibodies for themselves. They don't need to be peddled a vaccine. I can't speak for or against vaccines because these guys make me get it every single year. I have to get it no matter how much of an objector I am to it. So thank me for my service. Just kidding.
Yeah, I
Well,
think very, very quickly, we've just had a 2-month course in what to do and what not to do with this virus. If you had the regular flu, are you going to get up and leave the house?
no,
I
you're
have
going to stay home.
I'm not going to get off the couch. I'm thinking of going out and infecting everybody. But you got to use common sense at this point, and you got to hope that people have learned. If you think you're susceptible, all right, if you have an existing condition, you should probably still stay home. If not, if you're feeling fine, if you're younger than 60 or even 50, you should be out and working. Okay, there are certain segments of the population that should be working. I don't see closing the schools. All right, if no kids are getting it, although they're getting this Kawasaki disease all of a sudden, that lasted for about a week or two. But there are certain segments of the population that should be out there still and should be working and should be interacting. And it's that herd immunity that they're talking about in Sweden and Turkey.
Yeah. Well, it's all about fear and control, which is why the Kawasaki all of a sudden disappeared. Because as I said on a previous episode, I think it was 2 episodes ago, the medical community has no proof that it is linked to corona. So what they were trying to do is link it to corona, and that's why it was being peddled. And the second that they couldn't do that, guess what? It disappeared. It's fear and control. And the motto of the show is don't let fear take your freedom. And that's exactly what people are allowing them to do. They are allowing the government to tell them what they can do, where they can go, who they can talk to, what they can wear, what stores they can go into out of fear. And when you operate out of fear, that's how you end up a totalitarian government in the long run. That's what happens. You give them too much power. Do they really think that they're going to give it back? Has no one read The Handmaid's Tale? Has no one read 1984? The women's rights movement was all about The Handmaid's Tale when it came to the Alabama abortion bill. But there's a quote in that book said they suspended the Constitution. It was only supposed to be for a while, and we had an invisible enemy. You couldn't even see what it was. It's exactly what's going on right now. You're allowing people to take away your right to assemble. You're taking away your right to free speech. They're essentially taking away our right to bear arms by closing gun stores. This is exactly what they are doing. There has to be a fight back against this, and we need people like you, Dave, in government to help us get our rights back, because that's what happens when you elect people who are going to stand up for the people. That's how you get rights back. You don't get them back by just sitting down and wishing for the government to give them back to you. It's not going to happen. No,
they're your rights, and they're guaranteed by the Constitution. And first and foremost, or one of the things that's very important to me is personal freedom. It's getting government off people's backs and letting them live. We're here to provide police, health, and infrastructure. Make sure the roads are paved. Make sure your houses are safe. Government gets too involved. I don't think the government needs to have their hand in everything you do. And other people think differently.
Road, trash, police, and fire.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you had mentioned education. So what would you like to see happen in primary education?
Well, one of the things I think is important is primary education. Kids are like sponges when they're young ages. They can learn so much. They as I said, you look at Europe, look at some of the countries where they have 3 and 4 languages. Their kids speak 3 or 4 languages. We have trouble with English, if you stop and think about it. We're losing social skills as it is. People are texting. People don't know how to speak to each other. The other thing with the social skills, at that age, maybe you can bring in counselors, bring in some psychologists that can spot a loner, that can spot a bully, that can spot prejudice and nip it in the bud before it becomes a problem. Before we have the red flag law in the high schools now, that if they see a kid that the teachers or students perceive to be trouble or harmful to themselves or to society, they can say something. They go to the kid's house, take any guns or any weapons. I'd like to try to nip that while these kids are still pink flags, all right, before the problem turns into anything. And then just teach the kids, teach them at the young age.
That's definitely something that we've lost, but also just getting these kids to think. A lot of the problem with education, especially in New York City that I've seen, is you're teaching kids appeal to people's emotions, be about feelings. It's all about social justice and all this crap. Your whole point of school is not to raise me. It's to prepare me for the workforce. So I go to school so I can learn the things I need to graduate high school. And either I'm going to go to vocational school, I'm going to try to start a business, or I'm going to go to college, or whatever it is, where I'm going to go. The whole point of school is to create a competent human being for the workforce. It's the job of the parents to raise their children, and that's what they've lost. That's why we have these issues where, while Bill de Blasio is stating that, we have more kids graduating high school than ever before, but guess what? None of them are prepared for higher education. None of them are prepared for the workforce. And your whole goal was to get more minorities in college, right? But you're not preparing them for college because you're allowing them to slide by, and you're not teaching them the things necessary to get their brains working. They literally give classes on social justice, and then U.S. history is like, let's breeze through this.
Well, they don't teach that now so they can rewrite it in the future. Okay, understand that as well. They don't teach civics anymore. This way it can be rewritten. But I agree with you. They talk about free college. First of all, it's not free. Somebody's got to pay for it.
Right.
What you made a great point about vocational schools. College is not for everybody. Okay, you have jobs like plumbing, carpentry, electrician, okay, mechanic. These are jobs that can't be automated or outsourced. Okay,
you make a ton of money too. You make a ton of money.
Exactly. It's like the old joke. What does a plumber get for a house call on Thanksgiving? Anything he wants, right?
Yep.
But these are the jobs of the future. You're going to need skilled labor. We need to establish and put more money into vocational schools. And the problem you have with college these days, college will take anybody's money. And the other problem I see is they don't teach you how to think. They teach you what to think. College is supposed to teach you how to think and think out loud. And there should be room for debate there. Now it's, you don't think the way I think, I need a coloring book. I need a private room. It's sad. And that doesn't prepare kids for the real world.
Yeah, Gabe knows all about college professors not being open to new things, right, Gabe?
I think he just muted himself.
Yeah, sorry. Yes, so Jeffrey Lex. No, I don't even know if we have enough time for that.
Oh, we got time. We'll run through this a little bit to give Dave a little bit of background. Let's get his feedback on it, and then we'll wrap it up.
All right. So, Mr. Franklin, what happened recently was when it comes to the wonderful groupthink at Columbia University, at least in the political science department, it appears that there is only one side of history being taught, and that is the social justice, the democratic, bleeding heart liberal way being taught. And this was exposed when I got into a bit of a Facebook argument with a Columbia University professor. I am at a Columbia University student, but got into an argument, and he told me to drop dead, you neo-Nazi enabler. And he posed the question, how evil, stupid, and racist do you have to be to support the president? And this was all because I made a sarcastic remark as to somebody else's negative opinion of how the president was handling the COVID-19 situation back in April. And of course, I was there to defend him. But then out of nowhere, this professor just comes out and starts lambasting and, wishing death. So civil discussion is dead, it seems almost. And that's not even welcomed or taught, it seems, on college campuses.
I posted something on Facebook, which is just, I've learned to just sit back and enjoy the show. Anytime I post, I get myself in trouble. But we were talking about the COVID and whatnot. This person came out to attack me right away. So I was making my points, and it was counterpoint. And then finally it was like, well, this is the way my science looks at things. And if you don't like it, move to another country.
Yeah, I mean, but we're kind of moving towards what I like to think of as kind of a Star Wars mentality, where we have the left as the Sith, where it's, if you don't agree with me, then you're my enemy and you're an evil racist and you need to die. And then we have the people who are just like, can't we just live our own lives without you people telling us to kill ourselves?
Yeah. I'm going to die eventually. Don't push it.
Right. And it's sad that you're no longer allowed to just speak to somebody. I had gotten a whole bunch of fan mail over this story breaking, and I posted it up. And someone said, well, how come you don't comment on the people or respond to the people who are actually nice to you? And then somebody else responded like, oh, he just wants to spread the narrative. And I said, sorry, I didn't see this earlier. I happen to have been getting a lot of notifications from the story blowing up at the time. And I said, it's not that I don't want to address it. And I actually thanked them, and I appreciated them for actually saying, hey, we think differently from you, but we're still civil. we're still civil in all of this. And I said, thank you, because you were the only two people who actually reached out to me to discuss this or to see what was the big deal about, that didn't say something horrible or didn't call me names or didn't. And this isn't because I'm sensitive. It doesn't faze me. All I was doing was highlighting the fact that why was there so much outrage and hate? And I said to those to the people that were inquiring, I said, listen, I have not called for anyone to go message Columbia, harass the professor, or anything like that. If you do that, that's on your own admission, but I never asked for it. And no one can even say that I did or even wanted that to happen.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if someone did that, that was on their own time. And I said, thank you for at least showing me or giving me some more hope that, I already knew that not everyone was like that, but you at least put it there in that comment section and showed to many people that were active on that post at the time that there are people that will listen. And that's some of the stuff that we need to highlight.
Agreed.
I think a big issue that we've had is that we've had all these years of, don't talk politics. It's just going to start an argument, as opposed to, hey, I have a differing opinion. We can talk about it. You can believe what you want to believe. I'll tell you my position, and you don't have to agree with me. We've come into a society where you have to only listen to people that confirm your opinion. If you're right-leaning, you're only going to watch Fox News. And if you're left-leaning, you only watch CNN. I don't watch either of them because they're both full of crap, but that's not the point. The point is everyone's looking for confirmation bias instead of just opening their mind to other things. The reason why I landed on the path that I landed on was because I think for myself, I was open to new ideas. Before, when I was younger, I thought the government was great. I thought they did a whole bunch of great stuff. It was awesome. I was a proud American. I didn't know any better. The more research I did, the more I realized that if you give the government too much power, they will abuse it, because the government is made up of regular people. They don't know better than us. They are elected by us to serve us. And half the country has forgotten that. And that's a big problem.
Well, back in, I've 1 or 2 years on you guys. There was always question authority. It was your duty to question authority. Now it's just, it's an elitist society. It's the politicians are up here. We're somewhere, down here in the muck and mire.
What was it? The Michigan governor said that retaliating against totalitarian government or rebelling against totalitarian government is not the American way. That's the definition of the American way. It's how we started the country.
That's a mic drop moment right there. Yeah.
Oh, God, really? But guys,
you don't want to say anything else. You don't want them to say anything else. That's why.
No, definitely not. But guys, that's going to be our show for today. I'd like to thank you again, Dave, for coming on. If you could just tell the folks at home where they can find you online, should they choose to get more information about your campaign or donate to you.
Sure. My website is franklinforsenate.com. Franklin, Franklin, the word for FOR, and Senate, Senate.com. On Facebook, I'm Dave Franklin for State Senate. And that's about it. Guys, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate this. I enjoyed this.
I really appreciate having you on. We love to highlight people who we think are going to make a real difference in the state. That's a big part of why we started this, was to make change in New York.
Yeah.
So, we see the path that it's down, and it's unacceptable. And the only way to make change is to stand up and do something.
I will do my best. And as I said, it's about the people. It's people, not politics. And that's my credo.
I like that. Gabe, why don't you tell the folks at home where they can find you online? I know there's so many places since you're blowing up, super famous right now, Gabe Montalvo with the fresh shave. But tell the people where they can find you.
Thank you. So you can follow me on Instagram at baron.montalvo, BARON.montalvo, and on Twitter, baron_Montalvo. And I will always say this, it's here to take off Evan Ross. So you can also follow me on Facebook at Gabriel E. Montalvo. And if you want to support the Hispanic conservative movement, be sure to follow the RNHA New York chapter on Facebook. With that being said, use code GABE10. Use code GABE10 because they're not telling you that you can save money using my name and it's number 10 on it on their store to get their shirts. And believe me, some of it is very thickly, patriotically, very thickly. I said that wrong on purpose.
And make sure, the guys, that you check out Gabe's first article on EmpireStateConservative.com. Hopefully soon it will be accompanied by some other amazing writing. Gabe is very talented, which is why we brought him on board. But make sure you check that stuff out, and make sure you follow us on Instagram at GetRedPilledNY. Make sure you follow us on Facebook at Empire State Conservatives, on Twitter sometimes at Empire State Cons. And please check out our store, EmpireStateConservative.com/store. Just a reminder, all the money that we get from there goes back into the network so that we can spread our message, so we can bring people like Dave on, so we can bring, money towards campaigns for real conservatives so that we can help fix New York. That is the message. That is the mission. So for that, I'm Evan. That's Gabe. Dave, thanks again for coming on.
Thank you.
Make sure you wash your hands and don't let fear take your freedom.